So, have you ever been working with an automation tool and just hit a wall? You feel like you're being held back? Well, you're definitely not alone. Today, we're going to dive deep into n8n. It's a platform built specifically for creating seriously powerful and flexible workflows. We're going to see how it goes way beyond just connecting A to B and lets you build some truly sophisticated stuff.
All right, so here's our game plan. First, we'll tackle what is n8n. Then we'll get into its architectural blueprint and, this is a big one, the unwritten execution rules. After that, we'll weigh cloud versus self-hosted, look beyond the basics, and finally, map out your path forward to get you up and running.
Okay, let's jump right in. To really get what n8n is all about, you've got to understand its core philosophy. It's a totally different way of thinking about automation. And honestly, that's where all its power comes from. So, are you looking for automation that gives you real power and flexibility? This is the exact question n8n was built to answer. Look, a lot of tools out there are fantastic for simple point A to point B tasks. But n8n, it's designed for the tech-savvy crowd. We're talking developers, IT pros, DevOps folks, anyone who's ever hit that frustrating wall and thought, I just need to write some custom code here, or I need to handle this crazy data transformation.
And it all comes down to this idea they call low-code for technical teams. It's this awesome hybrid approach, right? You get this super fast visual drag-and-drop canvas so you can build out your logic really quickly. But, and this is the key, you always have an escape hatch. Anytime you need more power, you can just drop in a code node and start writing custom JavaScript or Python. It's for those moments when the pre-built blocks just won't cut it.
Another thing that really makes n8n stand out is its source available model. You might hear it called fair code. Basically, the code is public. You can go look at it, which is great for trust. But the real kicker? This allows them to offer a completely free, fully functional community edition. And I mean fully functional. This isn't some stripped-down trial version. It's the whole shebang, ready for you to self-host.
Okay, so we've got the philosophy down. Now let's get into the nitty-gritty, the architecture. If you want to really speak n8n, you have to know these fundamental building blocks inside and out.
Right, so at the very center of everything in n8n is the workflow. Just think of it like the master blueprint for your entire automation. It's that big visual canvas where you literally map out the whole process, from start to finish.
And what are the landmarks on that map? Well, those are the nodes. These are your individual steps, your building blocks. You've got trigger nodes that kick the whole thing off. They're just listening for something to happen, like a new form submission. And then you've got action nodes, which, do the work. Send an email, update a spreadsheet, whatever you need.
Now, when your workflow runs from start to finish one time, that's called an execution. And this is awesome. n8n logs every single execution with a ton of detail. It's an absolute lifesaver when you're trying to figure out why something went wrong.
So what's flowing between all these nodes? It's data. That's the lifeblood of the whole system. And here's a pro tip. Underneath that nice visual interface, everything, and I mean everything, is a JSON object. You don't always have to interact with it directly, but just knowing that is the secret to doing some really advanced stuff and debugging like a champ.
All right, so knowing the building blocks is step one, but now we get to the real secret sauce of mastering n8n. These are what I call the unwritten execution rules. If you want to build automations that are actually reliable and predictable, you have to understand this stuff.
And I can't stress this enough. These aren't just settings you can toggle on or off in a menu. Think of them more like the laws of physics for n8n. They are hard-coded into its architecture, and they dictate exactly how your workflow is going to behave every single time. So there are 4 of these laws you need to burn into your brain. First, the law of gravity. Data only flows one way, left to right, top to bottom. Easy. Second, sequential execution. Nodes run one after another, not at the same time. Third, branching logic. The if node is how you split your data down different paths. But the one we really need to talk about, the most critical of all, is the assembly line law. This right here, this is the whole game. The assembly line law. It means a node will run its action once for each and every item it gets as an input. Think about that. If a node receives 500 items, it's not going to perform one action on a list of 500 things. No, it is going to execute its action 500 separate times. It's a game changer.
So why does this matter so much? 2 words, performance and cost. Seriously, if you're calling an API that charges you per request, understanding this rule is the difference between a workflow that costs you pennies and one that sends you a bill that'll make your eyes water. Mastering this is absolutely essential.
Okay, moving on to the first big decision every single n8n user has to make. Where are you actually going to run this thing? Cloud or self-hosted? And trust me, this choice really shapes your whole experience.
And this table breaks it down perfectly. Look, n8n Cloud is all about convenience. You sign up, you start building. Done. The self-hosted Community Edition, on the other hand, is all about control and, potentially, cost savings. You get total control over your data and your setup. It really is that classic trade-off, convenience versus control.
All right, we've got the foundation solid. Now let's look at some of the really cool stuff. The features that take n8n from being just another automation tool to a full-blown development platform.
The real power of n8n shines in a few key places. First, it has a massive ecosystem of integrations. Hundreds of services are ready to go. And for anything else, there's a universal HTTP node. Then you've got that code node escape hatch we talked about for ultimate flexibility. They're also diving headfirst into AI with awesome integrations for things like OpenAI and LangChain. And finally, it's got enterprise-grade features for when you need to get serious about scale and reliability.
So where does n8n fit in the grand scheme of things? This chart says it all, really. You've got Zapier, which is the king of simplicity. You've got Make, which is a great middle ground with some advanced logic. And then you have n8n, which is unapologetically built for technical folks who crave that deep customization and power.
Whew! Okay, we have covered a ton of ground. So let's wrap this up. I want to leave you with some super clear, actionable steps to get you started on your own n8n journey. So here are my 4 big recommendations. First, just start with n8n Cloud. Don't worry about setting up a server yet, just learn the platform. Second, build something simple. Automate a small daily task to get a win under your belt. Third, and you knew this was coming, master that assembly line law. Always check how many items are going into a node. And last but not least, jump into the community. The forums are an incredible resource for help and ideas.
Seriously, if you follow that path, you'll go from a total beginner to a confident automation pro in no time. You've officially got the blueprint. You understand how n8n thinks. So the only question left is, what are you going to automate first?